The library smelled of aged parchment and polished oak, a scent I had once found comforting. Today, it only made my stomach churn. I had come seeking a quiet reprieve from the endless social obligations of the estate, hoping to lose myself in the latest collection of poetry, when I heard them. Laughter. Soft, careless, and unmistakably cruel. My heart skipped a beat, but I told myself it was nothing. Perhaps they were discussing a jest, nothing more. Yet, as I stepped closer, the laughter grew sharper, more intimate, and unmistakably familiar. My own name floated on their tongues, not with affection, but with mockery. I pushed the heavy library door open just a crack and peeked inside. And then I saw it. Byron's hand creeping up the silk skirt of Lady Clara, my supposed confidant, the woman I had trusted to be my ally. They leaned into each other, laughing as if the world and I did not exist. A strange, cold numbness settled in my chest. "Byron," I whispered, my voice barely audible, yet it sounded like a scream to my ears. Byron froze, caught mid-laugh, but not with fear, more with irritation, as if I were an inconvenience rather than his wife. Lady Clara's cheeks flushed, but she quickly masked it with a sly smile. "Genevieve," Byron said smoothly, straightening his jacket. "I didn't expect you." His words were casual, venomous in their normalcy. I stepped fully into the room, my skirts rustling, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. "I should hope not," I said, voice trembling with the effort of holding back fury. "Or is this a usual pastime for you both?" Byron's gaze darkened, and for a moment, a flicker of shame, or was it irritation, crossed his handsome face. "It's nothing truly. A jest. Don't take it so seriously." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing off the library walls. "Nothing? You call this nothing?" The woman I trusted, my friend, laughing at me while you... My voice caught, and I turned away, gripping the edge of a table to steady myself. Lady Clara stepped forward, a false look of concern painted across her features. "Genevieve, it's not as it seems." I cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Not as it seems?" I echoed, my hands trembling. "I saw enough, Clara. Your loyalty, your friendship, it's a lie, just like your husband's affection." Byron's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this, Genevieve. Do not let pride blind you. There are consequences for such accusations." I met his gaze, my own eyes blazing with a mixture of betrayal and fury. Consequences? The only consequence here is the truth finally being seen. I turned and left the library, my heart pounding, my mind a whirlwind of disbelief and rage. I could feel their stares on my back, the laughter silence now, replaced by a tense, uneasy quiet. But it was too late. The seed of my resolve had been planted. Byron and Clara had underestimated me, and they would regret it. Later, in the solitude of my chambers, I traced the events over and over in my mind. Every whispered laugh, every glance, every betrayal, I catalogued them as though they were weapons, ready to be wielded. I was Lady Genevieve, Duchess of this estate. I was not a woman to be toyed with. And yet, beneath the fury, a chill ran through me, a premonition, a whisper of danger. Byron was cunning, and I feared he would not take this humiliation lightly. I had to be careful, vigilant. I had to prepare, even as my heart ached with the sting of betrayal. The die was cast. From this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. The morning air felt crisp and deceptively calm as I stepped onto the terrace. Sunlight sparkled across the manicured gardens. Birds chirped as if the world were perfectly ordinary. But I knew better. I had felt it in my bones since the library, the premonition of danger that Byron's betrayal carried with it. Sir Thorne, captain of the guard and the steadfast protector of my family for decades, approached quietly, his expression as stern and unreadable as ever. "Your Grace," he said, bowing slightly. "May I speak frankly?" I turned to him, appreciating the solidity he always brought. "Of course, Thorne. Speak plainly." He drew closer, lowering his voice. "Your husband is not a man who forgives easily. I have watched his temper and his cunning for years. This display with Lady Clara, it will not go unanswered. You must be cautious. He will strike at you where you are most vulnerable. A shiver ran down my spine. Where would that be? I asked softly, though I already knew the answer. The carriage. The estate grounds. Anywhere I am alone. He thrives in secrecy, in shadows. Thorn nodded gravely. Precisely. I suggest precautions immediately. I will station trusted guards discreetly along your route to the countryside, and I will accompany you personally on your travels. You are no longer safe to journey alone. I swallowed, my mind spinning. The countryside trip was scheduled for this afternoon, a ceremonial visit to one of our rural holdings. Byron had suggested it himself, presenting it as an innocuous engagement, a gesture of civility. But now suspicion gnawed at me. What was meant to be innocent now seemed a trap, a stage set for his next cruel act. I will go, I said firmly. But I will not let fear rule me. I will not allow him to dictate my life or my actions. Thorn's gaze softened ever so slightly, a flicker of concern passing over his rugged features. Your courage is unmatched, Your Grace. But even the bravest can fall unprepared. I will be at your side. Always. His words warmed me, but also ignited something deeper, a realization that I could rely on him in ways I had never permitted myself before. There was trust in his presence, yes, but also a quiet strength that made my heart beat a little faster. He had always been loyal, and now, in this hour of danger, his loyalty felt almost like a shield around my very soul. As I prepared for the journey, dressing in layers that concealed both elegance and practicality, I felt the weight of betrayal heavy on my shoulders. Byron's arrogance had always been dangerous, but now it was personal. He had mocked me, humiliated me in the very halls of our home, and I would not allow him the satisfaction of fear or despair. The carriage was waiting, polished and pristine, horses pawing at the ground as if sensing my unease. Thorn was at my side, his presence a constant reassurance. I settled onto the seat, keeping my posture calm, regal, but alert. Every muscle was coiled, ready. As we departed, my mind ran over contingency plans, escape routes, and the layout of the roads ahead. My hands rested lightly on the edge of my skirts, but my mind was already a fortress. I would not be caught unawares. I would not be the victim this time. And yet, beneath my resolve, I could feel the first whisper of anticipation, not just fear, but a thrilling awareness of the battle to come. Byron had underestimated me once, in the library. That was his first mistake. I would make sure it was his last. The road to the countryside was dappled with sunlight filtering through the trees, serene and calm, or so it seemed. Every horse's step on the gravel sounded like a drumbeat of foreboding in my chest. I clutched the edge of the carriage seat, my knuckles whitening, though I kept my expression serene, as befitted a duchess. Sir Thorn rode beside the carriage, his eyes scanning every shadow, every bend in the road. His presence was steady, grounding, a reassurance I clung to more than I expected. "Stay alert, Your Grace," he said quietly, his voice calm but firm. "Something is not right today." I nodded, my stomach twisting. "I feel it too, Thorn. Something unnatural." The countryside rolled by, idyllic, peaceful, a stark contrast to the tension curling inside me. Then, a shadow darted across the road ahead, a figure on horseback, masked, moving too quickly for a simple traveler. Thorn's hand rested lightly on the hilt of his sword. "Hold steady," he said. "This is no accident." My pulse quickened. The air seemed to thicken, charged with danger. Then they appeared, 3 men on horseback, masks concealing their faces, weapons drawn. My carriage jolted as the horses reared, spooked by the sudden movement. "Bandits," Thorn growled under his breath. "They're fast, but we're faster." I gripped my skirts tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears, matching the thunder of the horses' hooves. My mind raced, but I knew I had one advantage. Thorn. He had protected my family, our estates, and now he would protect me. The attackers circled, trying to block our path. Thorn drew his sword with a swift, fluid motion, cutting down the first assailant's momentum. The clash of steel rang against the air, and I felt a thrill of fear mixed with something else, something akin to admiration, as I watched him move with precision, strength, and determination. "Your Grace, stay low," Thorn shouted, his voice urgent. "I will handle them." I obeyed, pressing myself into the corner of the carriage, heart hammering, every nerve alert. I watched through the window as Thorn engaged the attackers, each movement calculated, almost effortless. My breath caught as one of the bandits swung at him. He parried and countered, sending the man tumbling into the dust. Then, through the chaos, I noticed something peculiar. One of the bandits hesitated, a flicker of recognition in his stance. And then it hit me, the carriage attack wasn't random. These men were too coordinated, too familiar with the route. My pulse surged. Byron. He had arranged this. My husband had sent his own men disguised as bandits, hoping I wouldn't survive. "Thorn," I whispered urgently. "They're not real bandits. Byron, he's behind this." He nodded grimly, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. "I suspected as much. We'll turn the tables, Your Grace." With a swift motion, he signaled the guards accompanying us from the rear, who had been lying in wait, hidden along the road. Together, they surrounded the attackers, cutting off any escape. The men panicked, realizing their plan had failed. Thorn moved forward, disarming them one by one, his presence commanding respect and fear. I felt a rush of relief. And something more. The bond between us, the trust one had placed in him, had never felt more vital. He had risked everything to protect me, and in that moment, I understood the depth of my reliance on him. My chest warmed at the thought, a flutter of emotions I tried to suppress, but could not deny. The bandits were captured, trembling and defeated. And as I looked at their faces, recognition hardened in my stomach. Yes, these were Byron's men. The proof I needed. Thorn turned to me, his eyes locking with mine. "You're safe, Your Grace. This ends now." I smiled, the first genuine smile in hours, feeling both relief and something tender stirring within me. "Thanks to you, Thorn," I whispered, my voice barely audible. And in that moment, I realized that the battle had not only revealed Byron's treachery, but also the undeniable strength, loyalty, and something dangerously magnetic about the man who had always protected me. The dust had barely settled when Thorn marched the captured men toward the carriage. Their hoods had been knocked askew in the skirmish, revealing faces I recognized immediately. Byron's personal men, loyal only to his schemes and cruelty. My heart pounded, a mixture of triumph and a cold, burning fury. "Your Grace," Thorn said quietly, stepping close so only I could hear. "They will talk. And we will know everything." I nodded, gripping the edge of the carriage, my knuckles tight. "I need to hear it, Thorn. I need to know how deep this betrayal goes." The first man was trembling, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. We were paid," he stammered, voice shaky. "Lord Byron, he arranged it. Said you were to be eliminated. A carriage accident in the countryside. He promised it would be clean." A cold fury surged through me, a fire I could not extinguish. Byron, my husband, had plotted my death. The laughter in the library, the cruelty, the whispers behind my back, it was all a prelude to this. My chest heaved, a mixture of shock and rage, and yet, beneath it, a strange sense of clarity. I had survived. And now I had proof. Thorn placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "Genevieve," he said, voice firm, grounding me. "We can use this. We can bring him down. You're not alone. I will see it done, with you by my side." The warmth of his presence seeped into me. In that moment, I realized just how much I trusted him, not just his skill or loyalty, but him entirely. He had saved my life, not just physically, but from despair. And I felt something more. A pull, a warmth, a flutter I hadn't allowed myself to name until now. I turned my gaze to the trembling men. "You will testify," I said, my voice calm, but the steel behind it was undeniable. "Every detail, every word Lord Byron has spoken, every scheme, every plot. And it will be done willingly, or the law will make it so." The men nodded frantically, fear etched into every line of their faces. Byron's reach would end here. Thorn gave me a subtle nod, his eyes locking with mine, conveying unspoken approval, reassurance, and something softer, more personal. I felt my pulse quicken, realizing the bond between us had grown deeper in the heat of danger and survival. I had always admired his strength, but now I saw the unwavering loyalty and the care that had always been there, quietly, persistently, like a steady flame. I swallowed, steadying myself. "Thorn, I need your counsel. Every move I make from here must be precise. Byron will not surrender easily, and the world still sees me as the wronged wife. But I intend to reclaim everything, and I need you with me." He stepped closer, a small, reassuring smile brushing his lips. "Always, Your Grace. Every step, every plan, I'm yours to command. And when this is done, you will stand free, with no fear of him or his schemes." A thrill of emotion rose in me, a mixture of gratitude, relief, and something tender I could no longer ignore. I found myself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by more than respect or necessity. There was trust here. Yes, absolute trust, but also a warmth, a pulse of life, a reminder that even amidst betrayal, there could be hope and maybe something more. I exhaled slowly, feeling a quiet resolve settle in my chest. Byron had underestimated me, underestimated my intelligence, my strength, my allies. But with Thorn at my side, I knew we could turn his entire world upside down. I would see justice done, and I would reclaim not just my estate, but my dignity, my life, and perhaps even my heart. And as I met Thorn's eyes again, I realized I was no longer just the betrayed Duchess. I was a woman poised to take control, with a loyal protector beside her, and something more, something thrilling, stirring quietly between us. That evening, in the quiet of my private chambers, I sat across from Thorn, maps and letters spread before us like a battlefield we were about to conquer. Candlelight flickered across his sharp features, highlighting the determination in his eyes, and I felt a curious mixture of admiration and something more that made my chest flutter. "We need to move carefully," Thorn said, his finger tracing the route Byron had planned for me just hours before. "He thinks he is clever, but he underestimates both your intellect and my experience. We can turn his own plans against him." I leaned forward, studying the map, my fingers brushing his as we reached for the same parchment. A spark shot through me at the contact, subtle, electric. I reminded myself to focus. Revenge required clarity. But even as my mind plotted every maneuver, my heart acknowledged the warmth beside me. Thorn was more than an ally. He was steadfast, unwavering, someone I could finally rely on fully. "What if we confront him publicly?" I asked, voice low but steady. "If the bandits speak, we can force a confession. Expose him entirely. But it must be precise, no missteps." Thorn nodded, his expression approving, though there was a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I will prepare them to tell everything. Byron's arrogance will be his downfall. He will not anticipate your intelligence or your resolve." I smiled faintly, grateful for his unwavering confidence in me. "You've always believed in me," I said softly, almost to myself. "Even when he made me doubt myself, you never did." His gaze met mine, piercing and intimate. "I have served your family for decades, Your Grace. But it's more than duty now. I trust you with everything, and I will ensure that you are never harmed again." My pulse quickened, not from fear this time, but from the undeniable closeness of him. I felt a stir of longing, a fluttering in my chest that demanded acknowledgement. "Thorn," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. I trust you too. More than I've ever trusted anyone." He reached out, his hand brushing mine deliberately this time, lingering just a heartbeat longer. The warmth from his touch spread through me, grounding me, yet igniting something I had not expected. Desire, yes, but also comfort, a knowledge that I was not alone in this fight. Turning back to the maps, we continued our planning, but there was a new rhythm between us, a subtle intimacy threaded through strategy and whispers. Every decision, every movement, carried the unspoken acknowledgement that we were more than co-conspirators. We were partners, allies, and perhaps something deeper. "We will set the meeting with the men tomorrow," Thorne said quietly, "and I will ensure they recount everything. Byron will not know what hit him, and when it's done, he will have no power, no title, no influence over you." I nodded, a smile touching my lips, more confident than I had felt in months. "And I will be free," I said softly. "Free from him, free to reclaim my life. And, perhaps, to allow myself something more." Thorne's gaze softened, the corner of his mouth curving in a rare, personal smile. "Then we will see this through together," he said, his voice low and intimate. "And whatever comes next, I will be at your side." I met his eyes, feeling a thrill I could not ignore. "Together," I echoed. As we leaned over the maps again, plotting the downfall of my treacherous husband, I felt the dual pulse of power and affection. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I was not just the betrayed Duchess plotting revenge. I was a woman in control, confident in her allies, and daring to feel something I had thought impossible: desire, trust, and the promise of love with the man who had always protected me. Byron's games were ending, and as Thorne's hand brushed mine again, deliberate and reassuring, I knew my victory would not only be justice, it would be complete, and perhaps even sweet. The morning air was crisp and tinged with anticipation as I rode beside Thorne, my heart both steady and fluttering in ways I hadn't expected. Today we would act, not out of fear, but out of justice. Byron had underestimated me, and now it was time for him to see that his arrogance would be his undoing. Thorne's hand brushed mine as we dismounted at the estate's courtyard. The touch was deliberate, grounding me, and I felt a warm rush in my chest. He caught my gaze with a brief, knowing smile. "Ready?" he asked quietly. I nodded, tightening my gloves and straightening my posture. "Ready. Let's ensure he pays for every deceitful whisper, every betrayal, every lie." Our first step was simple yet precise. Thorne had arranged a meeting with Byron's hired men in the old stables, ensuring we had witnesses and a secure location. As the men entered, their confidence wavered. They had expected to report to their master, not to find themselves surrounded. The tables now decisively turned. "Your Grace," Thorne murmured beside me, "watch closely. Every detail matters." I swallowed, taking a deep breath, and spoke, my voice calm but commanding. "You have a choice," I said. "Tell the truth about Lord Byron's orders, or the law will compel it for you. Your complicity is no secret to me, and I assure you, honesty now will be far kinder than denial later." The first man shifted nervously, eyes darting around. "Lady Genevieve," he said, "you were to be taken care of. A carriage accident," he promised. "Continue," I said, my tone sharp yet measured. Each confession cut through the fog of betrayal I had lived in, solidifying the plan that would finally dismantle Byron's control over my life. One by one, the men admitted the scheme, their voices trembling as they recounted Byron's instructions, his manipulations, and his cruelty. Each word felt like a brick falling into place, constructing a foundation for the justice I had longed to claim. Thorne's presence at my side never wavered. His hand lightly brushed mine occasionally, a silent reminder that I was not alone, that I had someone who believed in me utterly. And with every glance, every small touch, I felt the stirrings of something more, a quiet, undeniable pull toward the man who had risked everything to protect me. When the last confession was given, I stood tall, my heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and a strange thrill. "This testimony will ensure that Byron cannot escape the consequences of his actions," I said, voice ringing with authority. "He will be stripped of his title, his lands, and his power. and I will reclaim my life. Thorn's gaze met mine, his eyes softening, reflecting pride and something tender I had not dared acknowledge until now. Your Grace, you've done it. You've taken control, and you've done it with courage and grace. A blush warmed my cheeks, but I allowed myself to smile. I could not have done it without you, Thorn. You've been my shield, my counsel, and my strength. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. And you, Genevieve, have my trust completely. I've always admired you, but now, I feel more than admiration. I feel hope, and perhaps something more. My heart leapt. I felt it too, the undeniable attraction that had grown in the shadows of danger, tempered by trust and respect. Then let us face what comes next, I whispered, leaning slightly toward him. Together. His lips brushed mine in a fleeting, electrifying kiss, gentle yet claiming, filled with promise. Together, he echoed, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. As we turned to oversee the men and ensure every detail was documented for the authorities, I felt a surge of power and warmth. Byron had underestimated me, and in doing so, had forged the bond between me and the man who would stand by my side through revenge, justice, and perhaps love. For the first time since the betrayal, I smiled freely, my heart full of determination, trust, and the spark of something far more exhilarating than victory alone. Byron stood in the grand hall like a king who still believed his crown was secure. The chandeliers glimmered above us, servants frozen at the edges of the room, and yet my husband looked almost bored, confident, arrogant, blind. I stepped forward, my heart pounding, but my voice calm. You asked to see me, Byron, I said. He gave me a thin smile. You vanished yesterday, Genevieve. I was concerned. He paused, then added lightly, one can never be too careful in the countryside. The words burned. I held his gaze. No, you cannot. The doors behind him opened. Thorn entered first, his presence commanding silence. Behind him were the men, the same men who had been paid to end my life. Byron's expression shifted, the faintest fracture in his composure. What is this nonsense? He said. Thorn spoke, his voice firm. These men have something to tell you, my lord. One of them fell to his knees immediately. We were paid, he blurted. You told us to stage a robbery. You said the Duchess would not survive the journey. The room erupted in murmurs. Byron's face drained of color. You are lying, he snapped, eyes flashing toward me. She is manipulating you. I took another step forward. No, Byron. You are finished manipulating anyone. I met his eyes, the same eyes that had once sworn loyalty, love, devotion. Now they were hollow. You sent them, I said. You wanted me dead, so you could inherit everything. And you thought I was too weak, too dull, too obedient to see it. He laughed suddenly, sharp, frantic. You think anyone will believe the circus? Thorn raised his hand. A sealed document was passed forward, the written confessions, signed, witnessed. Byron stared at the paper as if it were poison. You hired them. You planned my murder, I said. And today, you lose everything. The guards stepped closer. Byron turned to me then, panic blazing in his eyes. Genevieve, please, he said, his voice breaking. We can fix this. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Then I shook my head. There is nothing left to fix. The guard seized him. He struggled, shouting my name, cursing Thorn, swearing vengeance, but the power he once wielded was gone. As he was dragged away, I finally exhaled. I did not feel triumph. I felt freedom. When the doors closed behind him, the room felt lighter, as if a storm had passed. Thorn stood beside me, his hand brushing mine, not formal, not duty-bound, but gentle. You are magnificent, he said softly. I turned to him, emotion flooding my chest. I was terrified. He smiled. Courage is not the absence of fear. Our eyes locked. For a heartbeat, the world faded. You stayed, I whispered. When everyone else failed me, you stayed. His thumb brushed my knuckles. I always will. I leaned closer, my voice trembling. Then stay now. His hand cupped my face, careful, reverent, as if I were something precious. Our lips met, not rushed, not desperate, but full of promise, of understanding built through betrayal, danger, and trust. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. "It's over," he murmured. "No," I said, smiling softly. "It's just beginning." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. The silence after Byron's disgrace was unlike anything I had ever known. It was not empty. It was peaceful. For the first time since my marriage, I woke without dread pressing against my ribs. The estate no longer felt like a gilded cage. It was mine again, my home, my legacy, my future. And Thorne was there. He never announced himself. He simply appeared when I needed him most, walking beside me through the gardens, overseeing the guard rotations, standing quietly in the doorways of rooms where I was finally learning to breathe again. One morning, as sunlight spilled across the roses, I found him waiting near the fountain. "You didn't sleep," he said gently. I smiled faintly. Not from fear this time. We walked together in silence, the kind that doesn't ache. "I used to believe love meant endurance," I admitted. "That suffering was the price of loyalty." Thorne stopped. "That was never love," he said. "That was survival." I looked at him then, truly looked, at the man who had protected me without demanding anything in return. "I don't know how to begin again," I confessed. He reached for my hand. "You already have." Weeks passed. The estate transformed, not in grandeur, but in spirit. Laughter returned to the halls. Music filled the drawing rooms. And with every shared glance, every quiet conversation by the fire, something deeper grew between us. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, I finally voiced what had been living in my heart. "You were never just my protector," I said. His eyes searched mine. "And you were never just my duty." There was no grand confession. No sweeping declarations. Just truth. When he kissed me that night, it was not the kiss of victory, it was the kiss of healing. The months that followed were gentle. We rebuilt not only the estate but ourselves. I learned what it meant to lead without fear. He learned how to stand not behind me, but beside me. One afternoon, standing beneath the old oak where my ancestors were buried, he spoke quietly. "You don't need saving anymore." I smiled. "No. But I choose you anyway." His eyes softened, and he took my hand. And in that moment, I realized something profound. I had not been reborn to seek revenge. I had been reborn to reclaim my life and my heart. And this time, I would never give it to the wrong man again.